Howdy ho, and welcome to the 1200 Films Podcast. I am your host, Charles Chuckloaf Stevens. Welcome to my journey, my quest to set the Guinness World Record for films watched in one calendar year. Current record is set at 1120 something, and I'm going for a full 1200. Thus the name of the podcast, the 1200 Films Podcast. So what is the purpose of the podcast? Well, the podcast is so I can review every film I watch, because when I asked Guinness, how do I prove this? They gave me a very copy and paste answer. The more ways you prove it, the better your eyes will recognize it. I know, thanks for nothing, right? So I thought, what's a more modern way to do this than a podcast? It's not the only way I'll be attempting to prove this, but that's one of the pieces of the pie. Then people always ask, well, what if you don't get the record? What if they don't recognize it? Well, then I will learn voodoo, and I will put a curse on everyone at Guinness. No. I'm watching movies, people. It's not like I'm putting needles in my eyeballs. Although, if I have to watch any Medea movies, needles in the eyeballs may be a comparable sensation. Moving on. This will be a weekly-ish show, or every 20-25 movies, whatever comes first, I guess. Then I'll also, in each episode, be previewing the films I plan to watch in the upcoming week. Not all the films I'll be watching the upcoming, but most, you know. And I only plan to watch movies I haven't seen before. Any Shamil can watch The Polar Express 5,000 times. That's pointless. But the trouble with watching movies I haven't seen, I've seen most everything. So I started prepping for this in late 2016. I stopped watching a lot of new releases so I could save them for my record attempt. Some movies did not get that far. Some movies I wanted to save, and I ended up, Star Trek Beyond and John Wick 2 I really wanted to save, and I didn't, which is too bad because they were easy movies to get through. And I also took one of those 1,600-page Leonard Maltin movie guides and went through it page by page and wrote down any movie that looked halfway interesting that I haven't seen, and then transferred that to my Netflix queue or whatever. My Netflix DVD queue is maxed out at 500. 500 is where they stop you, apparently. Most people didn't know that. I learned the hard way. My Netflix streaming queue is just over at 100. My Amazon Prime is about 50. And then I got another 40-ish physically on hand, ready to go. Plus, obviously, I'll be adding a lot of new releases throughout the year. And later on in the year, I plan to actually go to the physical theater for an all-day excursion, which should be interesting. Hopefully, that'll be enough to set this record. If not, you'll know, because I'll be watching The Substitute 3 or The Marine 5. And I'll be regretting my decisions. I also take recommendations, but it's going to have to be pretty obscure or very recent or foreign. That's fine too. You can just put it in the comments below, or you can email me at the1200films@yahoo.com. The1200films@yahoo.com. The series I plan to watch in the upcoming year, I really want to watch all the James Bond movies. I've only seen one. I've seen the one with Christopher Walken just because it had Christopher Walken. And it turns out that was one of the worst Bond films ever. So it kind of turned me off to Bond films. So I'm going to try that. The Fast and Furious. I've seen the first 3, was not impressed, but everyone seems to love the rest of them, so we'll see. The Harry Potter series, I've seen the first one. Didn't hate it. It was fine. But I think it's time to watch the rest of them. And now's my excuse to do that. I'm going to be watching a lot of Hitchcock movies. I've seen The Birds. I've seen Psycho. And I think there's one happened on a train that I think I've seen. But I'll be watching the rest of them. And then I'll be watching list of certain actors. Like Donald Sutherland. I really want to get through his stuff. I just watched Eye of the Needle and Dan Candy's Law, and I can't wait to get some more Donald Sutherland. I also want to watch at least 1 or 2 Elvis movies. These movies were so big back in the day, and I want to know if there's any substance to these films, or is it just him shaking his hips, singing. So that'll be interesting. A couple of the movies I'll be watching in my first week is Split. The newest from M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong, who hasn't made a good movie since 2002. You know what happened in 2002? Michael Jackson dangled his baby over the balcony. That's how long it's been since this man has made a good movie. Lady in the Water wasn't that. Oh, get out of here, Lady in the Water. I'll also be watching Passengers, The Arrival. A lot of sci-fi movies in here. 50 Shades Darker. I'll be watching that. A lot of people said the first one was one of the worst films ever. Listen, people. You got to know what you're getting into when you watch certain films. When you go to a baseball game, you know you're going to be watching baseball. And when you watch a 50 Shades movie, you got to know what you're getting into. Anyway, I'll also be watching Life. The newest from Jake Gyllenhaal. Let's discuss Jake Gyllenhaal. Bubble Boy, which came out in 2001, I believe, is one of my guilty pleasure movies. I know it's not a good movie. There are parts, the ice cream guy and Punani and Pippi, and it's got some bad parts, but it's my guilty pleasure movie. I enjoy it. So I vowed when I watched that I would watch everything this man does. Every movie Jake Gyllenhaal does, I will watch. And I even went back and watched his old stuff, the Donnie Darko. And October Sky, those movies are fine. But lately, this commitment has been a struggle. He has made some stinkers. Okja was fine, and Prisoners was good. But wow. Enemy was real bad. Accidental Love was amazingly bad. Demolition wasn't very good either. But hopefully Life is okay. Kong Skull Island, I'll be watching that. Probably comparing that to the Jack Black movie they put out 10 years prior. Then I just got handed a big stack of Pixar DreamWorks movies, so I'll be watching some Frozen. And Minions and a couple others. So that'll be fun. I think that's enough for this show. You got an idea what's going on. If you got any questions, whatever, put them wherever in the comments or email me, like I said. The 1200 films at yahoo.com. The 1200 films at yahoo.com. And yeah, it should be fun. Feel free to subscribe, and I'll talk to you later.